2018 is just days away, so with that in mind, it's time to look back at some of the good things that we saw in WWE this year. I like to make fun and criticize on this channel, but I'd be foolish if I said that nothing positive came out of this year. So now, I'm going to rank them, the top 8 best things to happen in WWE in 2017. Number 8. Top tag teams are terrific. This may seem like a contradiction to what I said in the previous countdown, but hear me out. While the tag division on the whole has been kind of anemic, the teams that were actually fighting for the belts were amazing. Over on Raw, Cesaro and Sheamus established themselves as one of the top tag teams in the company in their wars with teams like the Hardy Boys and later the reunited Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose. In particular with 2/3 of the Shield, those bouts were particularly hard-hitting. We all got to see just what kind of athletic freak of nature Cesaro can be. Over on SmackDown, the Usos and the New Day carried the torch for tag team wrestling, and in my opinion was one of the best rivalries of the entire year, tag team or not. These two teams seemed to keep outdoing themselves every time they wrestled, capping off with an incredible, ridiculous Hell in a Cell match in October. Oh, and by the way, their rap battle with Wale as the moderator was a pretty cool segment too. I think all 4 of these teams have raised the bar, no pun intended, for tag team wrestling in the company, much in the way Edge and Christian, the Dudleys and the Hardys did 17 years ago. These 4 teams have made Raw and SmackDown a lot of fun to watch this year. Number 7. The Miz, Intercontinental Champion. Love him, hate him, or love to hate him, you have to admit The Miz as IC Champion has been one of the best parts of WWE this year. After starting the year on SmackDown feuding with Dean Ambrose and John Cena, The Miz moved to Raw as part of the Superstar Shakeup, regained the IC Championship, and had a hell of a run as the Red Show's de facto top heel. During this time, his promo work was excellent as well. Some of the strongest promos not only for the show in general, but for The Miz's career as well. As the year went on, The Miz gained an entourage, further adding to his heelish ways. You probably won't find him in any Match of the Year candidates for 2017. His matches with guys like Ambrose, Jeff Hardy, and Roman Reigns were all very solid performances. His most high-profile angle of the year had to be when he goaded the Shield into reuniting. Roman Reigns' illness in October kind of derailed the momentum of the whole thing, but it was one of the bigger angles of the year, with The Miz at the center of it all. After holding the belt for a total of 172 days, this was the year The Miz established himself as one of the best Intercontinental Champions of all time. His consistency in the ring and on the microphone made him impossible to ignore in 2017. Number 6. The Undertakers Farewell. I'm putting that in quotes because there's a part of me that's really afraid they're going to undo this moment in 2018, but for the time being, I'm going to chalk this up as one of the best, most emotional moments of the year. At the end of WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, Roman Reigns beat The Undertaker and established it was now his yard. I know, calm down, but the real heartbreaker came after the match, when Taker stood in the middle of the ring, his music playing and the lights all down. He took off his gloves, his hat, and his trench coat, the last 2 of which he managed to put back on at some point. Then he folded it all up, put it in the middle of the ring. He went to ringside, hugged his wife and his children, went back up the ramp, and descended into the abyss, seemingly saying goodbye to his fans. For men and women who grew up watching The Undertaker, this was a huge, devastating moment. Here was a man who dedicated decades of his life and gave up so much of his body for this business, holding his head up high while he passed the torch on to the younger competitor. It's similar to the farewells given by Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels in years past, but this one felt a little bit different from that. Flair and Michaels are normal characters by and large, so we see them on TV all the time. But Taker is shrouded in mystery. When will we ever see him on our screens again? When will we hear him tell his side of the story? It's that level of the unknown that makes this one of the most memorable moments of the entire year. Number 5. Meningitis. Call it that, or the mumps, or a viral infection, what have you, but this medical issue that briefly terrorized the Raw locker room actually led to some of the best crash booking I can recall in about a decade. In the build to TLC, 2 major matches were drastically impacted by this mysterious illness. Bray Wyatt couldn't compete against Finn Balor, killing the debut of his Sister Abigail persona. Whether that was good or bad is up to you. But even more importantly, Roman Reigns was pulled from the main event that would see the Shield take on The Miz and friends, completely derailing the Shield reunion. The company could have done nothing in response to this, but instead they swung for the fences and with 3 days' notice made some bombshell changes. The first being they would borrow AJ Styles from SmackDown to face Finn Balor instead of Bray Wyatt, and on top of that they would preemptively unretire Kurt Angle to take Roman's place in the main event. Both matches delivered. Styles and Balor was awesome, though you get the feeling it could have been better, but at the same time, you can forgive them for that since Styles took a red-eye from South America to make it for this match. Angle's involvement in the main event was fun to watch, even though he was pretty well protected. And even though no Roman Reigns means the whole point of this match was rendered moot, the remaining guys in the match busted their asses for an enjoyable close to the show. In the face of a last-minute booking disaster that was beyond their control, WWE went above and beyond in salvaging the show, finding replacements that not only surprised, but entertained. Number 4. The UK Tournament and Myun Classic. In 2016, the company had something special on their hands with the Cruiserweight Classic. With that and the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, it seemed that tournaments were the way of the future, and this year we saw two great examples of that. In January, WWE officially entered the UK market with the United Kingdom Championship Tournament in Blackpool. The two-night event saw Tyler Bate become the first ever champion, beating Pete Dunne in the finals. And although that proposed UK-based network show is still up in the air, it was still a phenomenal tournament with a great story arc and really introduced a lot of fans to the vaunted UK style. Then over the summer, the company gave us the Myun Classic, featuring dozens of women from all over the country, mostly Stardom and Shimmer, with some NXT sprinkled in there. From flashy rookies to established veterans, these ladies got a chance to shine that might not even have been possible even 3 years ago. Kairi Sane beat Shayna Baszler in the finals in Las Vegas, but we saw a lot of women impressed during this tournament. Though it's unknown what theme the company is going to pick for the next tournament full of unsigned faces, based on what we've seen this year, the future looks bright. Number 3. The lighter side. Anyone who knows my sensibilities knows I love me some comedy in my wrestling. Some of my favorites growing up included Kurt Angle, Mick Foley, Edge and Christian, guys who were hysterical outside the ring but totally serious inside. And this year provided me with some of the biggest laughs I've had in quite a while. Earlier this year, WWE's YouTube channel put out Southpaw Regional Wrestling, a series of videos doing a cheesy, exaggerated send-up of Southern territorial wrestling from the 80s, mostly Memphis and Kentucky, with some hilarious performances. But for my money, the MVPs were Rusev as Big Bartholomew, Tyler Breeze as Mr. McElroy, and Gallows and Anderson as Tex Ferguson and Chad Too Bad. Even though the inevitable second season had a big slump compared to the first offering, the whole combined series is great for a laugh. And speaking of Tyler Breeze, how about he and Fandango doing the Fashion Files, probably their biggest main roster success to date. It started out as a parody of cop dramas, then it spiraled out of control into things like Stranger Things and Twin Peaks and Quentin Tarantino movies and the Saw franchise. From the writing and the one-liners and the cameos and the bulletin board in the background, this was just some great comic stuff and really one of the few highlights I had to SmackDown for the bulk of the year. Throw in Rusev and Aiden English singing about Rusev Day and the return of Woke and Matt Hardy, I hope to keep on laughing into 2018. Number 2. The Festival of Friendship. When I watched this live in February, I thought to myself, it's going to be really hard for any segment after this to top what we saw here. And 10 months later, that still stands. It was on a Monday night in Las Vegas where Chris Jericho celebrated his brotherhood with Kevin Owens with the Festival of Friendship. And this thing had it all. It had showgirls, it had pyro, decorations, and even some classy art pieces. After Jericho laid bare his soul to Kevin Owens, KO responded in kind by murdering Jericho and setting the stage for their WrestleMania matchup. Like I said, I always enjoy a bit of funny in my wrestling, and I also enjoy drama and intrigue, and this segment really had it all. The dialogue, the pacing, the delivery, Jericho's over-the-top presentation, Kevin's deadpan self, the tragedy in Chris's face at the revelation of the list of KO and seeing his name on the list. Everything just worked here. It's still the best, most perfect segment you can find all year long. Before I reveal number 1, it's time for a special honorable mention. Like I did with the worst list, I'm going to tell you one of the best things that happened in wrestling outside of WWE. New Japan Pro Wrestling makes huge waves. I often don't have enough time to cover New Japan and find out everything that's going on there, but even I couldn't help but notice some of the big things they were doing both in Japan and here in the States. When it comes to the wrestlers themselves, it's hard not to think about Okada and the wars he had with guys like Kenny Omega, Shibata, and Cody Rhodes, or Tanahashi and his feud with Naito over the IC Championship, or what about the barn burner between Kenny Omega and Tomohiro Ishii for the new US Championship? Speaking of which, there was the G1 special in USA in Long Beach, California this summer. It was a huge entry point for further penetration of the US market. It was the first show that New Japan independently promoted in the United States, so it was a big deal. Although next time, let's hope they fix their production issues and maybe use the better announced team. And then in one of the biggest surprises of the entire year, the announcement that Chris Jericho, who is still under a WWE contract, will be wrestling Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom 12 in January, setting in motion a dream match I never knew I wanted before now. And the number 1 best thing about WWE in 2017 was AJ Styles' phenomenal year. Last year when AJ Styles won the WWE Championship, I thought to myself, well, he's peaked. They're never going to use him this well ever again. But it turns out I was wrong because somehow 2017 was an even better year for him. His year began with another classic match with John Cena at the Royal Rumble, this time for the championship. And even though Cena would win the feud, Styles was not hurt by the loss. At WrestleMania, Styles fought Shane McMahon, and though many fans thought that was beneath him, it was still arguably the match of the night, and they were the opener. Styles had become the US champion for the first time after beating Kevin Owens at a house show at Madison Square Garden, a title he would hold on and off throughout the summer. Then there was his aforementioned match at TLC with Finn Balor. Then he became the WWE champion once again after beating Jinder Mahal on SmackDown. Then we got what's arguably the best Brock Lesnar match we've seen in what feels like years at Survivor Series. For proving himself to be invaluable for the company, for making all of his opponents and himself look amazing in the ring, AJ Styles' body of work this year is the best thing about WWE in 2017. So what are your picks for the best things of the year? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and thank you all so much for another amazing year of regret.